Okay, here's an idea. What if we just spend 15 minutes talking about Prime trying to get his video done, and then we all say we have to leave?
You've said so much F.
Let me just send a quick tweet. I said the worst part about Prime's AV issues on the stand-up is that we are wasting at C. Muratori's time.
C. Muratori is not impressed.
Anyways, sorry. All right, everybody, things are ready, and we are ready to start the stand-up, the most authentic podcast of them all. Yes. Today we have with us TJ, resident genius. We have Casey Muratori, Riz expert, and of course Trash Dev, with whom we all love and say very nice things about.
But don't ask about his keycaps, guys.
We're not talking about keycaps today.
Don't ask about the O key.
Yeah,
Do not ask what is on the O key.
Do not.
That is the cardinal rule of the stand-up.
So, with that said, we are going to be talking about performance today. And of course, not only is Casey a Riz expert, he is a mediocre performance man. As at least this is what he says. He says he's not a deep performance guy. He just has some basic ability in it, and he knows things that we don't know. And so we want to hear some good stories from Casey about this, and maybe we'll tell a couple stories ourselves about some performance stuff that happened.
Let's start with the mediocre part. Actually, can we start with the mediocre part?
Sure.
Because that was the part I most wanted to talk about.
I wanted to, because I remember you specifically always saying, I'm not a performance guy. I'm not a performance guy. That's why I called it mediocre. But if you didn't like that,
No, I want to talk about that because that is exactly what I want to start with. I just want to start with this depressing fact or observation, which is that if you rewind time like 20 years, right? You just turn the clock back.
I was
to
in
when
high school.
I'm much younger.
Middle
I don't
school.
think Teej was born yet. Teej wasn't born, right?
I was 11, all right? I was 11, okay?
Such
There
a
you go.
baby.
I know, right? He was ziplining and dad camping with his own dad.
So true, so true. Really brings me back.
It brings you back. I was the person who did not know anything about how CPUs worked or performance or anything, right? And that was pretty consistent. Like, I generally was just like, I'm just writing, code to do stuff and worrying about how things are architected and stuff like that. And what was weird is, I'm sure, like, I've definitely gained a lot of knowledge over the 20 years, so I'm not going to pretend like I don't know a lot more than I did then, but I definitely did. But my attitude on stuff has really not changed. I've always just been about, I want this thing to run reasonably, and then we're good. But the perspective of everything that surrounded me has constantly just been ratcheting downwards and downwards and downwards and downwards over the past 2 decades, to the point where now I just want things to run reasonably well. That has not changed, but everyone's now like, reasonably well is this unattainable, you must be an optimization god to even consider it level. And that is so weird, right? I've just watched it go, and I'm still like, I'm not hand coding stuff in assembly language. Half the time I don't even really look that hard at the performance of stuff that I'm working on. I'm just vaguely making sure that it doesn't dip below, a nice 60 FPS output like it should have, right? It's not that hard. So it's been so weird to see the standards just drop through the floor and everyone act like nothing happened. So I just wanted to start there with that observation, because I think people think I'm like this hard, like I was back there like hand coding assembly on the Commodore 64 and like, what's up with you losers, right? It's like, no, I'm just like everybody else. It's just I don't know. So do you know what I'm saying? Is this
so
landing
you're
at
like
all?
everybody else, but you have you care slightly. Because even now, 60 FPS, that's not considered a banger anymore. You got to be 144 at this point.
Exactly. I mean, I'm the guy who's like, yeah, 60 was probably fine, right? Like I'm literally, my standards are not like, oh my god, if it's not 500 megahertz, then you're not, right?
Hackathon's over, but that doesn't mean the content is. Join us on July 26th at 10 a.m. PST on Prime Stream to live react to the award ceremony. See what everybody built, and we'll see you there.
It's okay, you worked at Netflix. You have everything they want.
And I appreciate those performance goals. Certainly, like if I was doing an action game or something, I would want that. And I like even being able to move a window around at 140 hertz. It feels great. It does, right? But I'm not out there like going like, oh my God, I can't believe people didn't ship a 500 megahertz update for this, Twitter or whatever. But just it dropping down to like update times in several seconds is just fine. Where did it come from? You know what I'm saying?
Can I propose at least one small thing?
Please.
Yes.
I do think that there was, if you remember the 90s, which I'm sure you do, there was an entire world where we went
Barely.
from not being on the internets to being on the internets, and everything took many, many seconds to do anything. Like, everything was so big. And so as everything got faster, I think there was, like, at least among my generation, the millennials, where's my millennials at? There was, like, a general acceptance that, hey, look at this. It went from taking 10 seconds to taking, like, a second. Things are so fast now. Like, look how amazing this is. And so, like, a 1 second loading time was like a miracle passed down to us. I remember the days of going, because I used to watch my mom, and I used to be really into the stock market when I was in 6th grade and do all the stocks with my mom. I
Probably
really
had
loved
a
it.
lot of friends too, didn't you? A
Yeah,
lot of friends.
I did. I went to a private school. There was 12 of us in our grade. I was into things. Okay, I was into things. And I still remember, like, during that day, just watching her on Charles Schwab, and it would take like 45 seconds a screen. So when things were taking a second, I think I never kind of lost that magic. And so perhaps, like, there's like a part of me that still lives in the fact that I used to try to download this 30 megabyte game called Slayer.net, where it was like an RPG. You'd go and like level up, and 30 megabytes was every 5 minutes 1 megabyte. So that's 5 times 30. There's there's a lot. That's a lot of time, 2.5 hours just to download 30 megabytes. So I live in this permanent world of I can't believe this works. And so maybe I'm part of the problem, is that I just love it. I just cannot believe we have all these nice things. All right, TJ.
Quick side question.
You can go.
Is the rumor true that you used a briefcase instead of a backpack in 6th grade? Or?
No, my mom would never let me use a briefcase because that'd be bad for your spine. So I was never.
Oh, so
allowed
instead
to
you
walk around.
one shoulder strapped and
No,
broke
I never
yourself.
one shoulder strapped either. That'd be bad for your spine. Nor did I overload the books
wow.
with it. I always did a 2 shoulder strap. I never needed to be cool. Always was instead. And I just simply had a couple books in there. Okay, I was never that guy that ran with all the books. You, TJ, strike me as a guy with all the books in the backpack kind of kid.
No, I didn't bring my books to school. I listened in class and then got A's.
Oh,
All right,
snap.
sorry. All right.
Nice
Wow.
try, Prime. You've completely
All right.
mischaracterized
All right.
me.
Wow. Okay. So you didn't need the books are you don't need those books. Those
Books are
complete-
irrelevant. The only time I ever needed a book, Spanish class.
Okay. Yeah.
Me,
Because you have
I
to
always needed
memorize
my
stuff.
book because you had to read out loud. We always read from
All
the
right.
book.
Well,
And
yeah,
stuff.
So when
I mean,
Prime
if you
when
have-
Prime
if
said
you're-
he was going to get a tortilla before, were you like, what? Sorry, what?
It's pronounced tortilla.
Okay.
Oh my God.
sir. Tortilla. Even I can read.
Well, I think Prime's suggestion is probably a good one. Like, I mean, I could totally see that if people are all still thinking that that their computer is running over like a 9600 baud modem connecting to AOL, then maybe some of these speeds would be explicable, right? Like they would make a lot more sense. But most people are on connections so fast right now, especially like when you're talking about the high end. So like if you're talking about like even my setup here where we don't have like fiber to the home or anything like that. We're like out in Comcast land. But it's still like only a few milliseconds ping time. And the bandwidth is like, something like 2 gigabit. Like it's very fast. Basically everything should be instant. It's all just issues with either, data center or what's running or the servers or how you wrote it or the client side or whatever. There's really not, like, you're not gated by the things that you would have been gated by in the 90s by any stretch of the imagination.
Right.
But if people are still thinking like somehow that's true, that would explain why they think this is fine, I guess, because they're like, wow, you guys are doing really good running this on a 9600 baud modem. I'm like, yeah, okay, that is pretty impressive for a 9600 baud modem.
What I
I'd
mean
really
by this
disagree.
is that there's like a part of me that when something takes a moment to load, I go, internet, right? Because it's just like I spent a
Right.
decade going internet. And so it's like still
Right.
built in me just to assume that anything that takes a second is internet.
And it's not.
It's
it
not.
never is.
I worked at Netflix also,
Completely
and I know
false.
for a fact it's not internet. But
Yeah.
nonetheless, in my head, I'm like, internet,
Netflix.
even though it's not.
Yep. Okay.
I
Yeah.
remember the moment I got like a solid state drive in the startup time of like my computer was just significantly faster, and it was like from that moment I was like, okay, things can be way faster than they are now.
Yep.
And then that kind of like from that moment on, everything's just needed to be like really snappy. But to Prime's point, I always thought, yeah, just latency to some endpoint that they're calling. But if it's like an app on my phone physically that takes like more than a second to open, I'm like, what the? And I kind of figure it's not an API endpoint. It's probably just maybe the hardware in my phone. But like as you upgrade your phone, right, the phones get snappier and snappier. I'm kind of the guy that upgrades his phone every like 5 years. I don't really care too much. But then like once you upgrade, you're like, man, I've been missing out. So like my threshold of like tolerance is like slowly, I don't know.
I think the public's might be as well. Like I see a lot more people complaining about this sort of stuff now, so I kind of feel like maybe the tide is turning. Because like I felt like 10 years ago or 15 years ago, I don't know how long, I've been saying this kind of stuff for a long time. I felt like it was just like, this guy, what is he just, why, he's way too high standards, whatever. I don't feel that much anymore. It seems like people are kind of coming around to the fact that, no, really it is, like, it just sucks, and, like, things should be a lot faster. So I do feel like there's some kind of a attitude change, but I'm not sure why that's happening either. Just like I'm not really sure why no one cared before. I'm not sure why they seem to start caring now. But I'm glad they are, right? I'm glad they're putting that pressure on, at least a little bit.
TJ, you got to talk to us. You look like you keep agreeing and shaking your head, but I don't hear any words.
Well, the thing I really wanted to do is I was hoping everyone could go quick around in a circle and everyone can do their best dial-up sound impression. There's probably a lot of viewers here who have never heard one. And then I'd love to have the YouTube commenters type out what they think their best dial-up impression is. And leave that in the comments. Yeah.
I got a story real quick.
Okay, hit me, Trey.
Thank you, because I don't want to make a dial-up sound.
No, we're coming back to that. We're circling back to that.
I'll make one, but when I was like younger and I was like, doing that Dragon Ball Z chat on AOL, this would be like 10 p.m. at night, it's school night. I don't even know how old I was. And I would literally take my huge like comforter from my bed, smother my computer, just so you could not hear the sound, and then just like pray. Like by the time this like 20-second sound is done, that I don't hear my parents walking, but it was like,
yeah. Very good. Yes.
That's perfect.
We don't need to do any more.
We do. We still do.
Crushed it,
so
dude.
funny. Hold on.
He
So you would
crushed
hide
that.
it from your parents?
Well, I smother the sound so they can't hear me because it like radiates.
Well,
like,
is it because you weren't supposed to be on the computer at that point?
Yeah, it's 10 p.m. at night, man. I had to go to bed. I had school like at 7 in the morning.
My parents were very nice and never cared about this kind of misbehavior. So during like almost the entire last 2 years of high school, I want to say, my schedule was as follows. For some reason, I would go to school because you had to. I'd come home and I'd go immediately to bed because I was exhausted. I would sleep for about 2 or 3 hours. I would wake up, right? And I would program until like 3 in the morning. And then I went back to bed for just like 2 or 3 hours. So like I had to get up at like 6 something. And I would go to school and I'd just be like completely tired and super annoyed that I had to do that. And then the cycle would just repeat. That's like the entire last 2 years of high school for me. We're like that.
Now
I was so checked out.
Yeah.
Sorry?
Do your dial-up sound now.
It would be much like trash. It's like.
I feel like yours was too beautiful. Yours was more like a horror movie.
That was like some movie sound effect.
Yeah.
I feel like I got teleported back in time.
That was really a UFO. So
I'm waiting for RuneScape to download on my computer right now to finally finish like updating in the browser and get cached correctly.
Mom, I'm not on the internet.
Yeah.
Mom,
well, the other thing is, I don't actually know. Like, I didn't know as a kid, right? As a kid, there's like no internet. Like it's not a thing. I mean, it exists as ARPANET and all this sort of stuff and whatever. So it's there, but like you don't have any knowledge of it. You can't get on it. So BBSs or things like that is all you could information around. There's not much information. So I don't know anything. Like all the programming stuff you kind of had to learn yourself or try to find books at like, the Borders bookstore or something like this. Right. And remember them. And So one of the things too is like modem sounds always used to get progressively more ridiculous, right? Because there's 2400 baud modems, there's 9600 baud modems, there's 14.4 modems or whatever they were. I don't remember. And the sound used to be just the first sound. Used to be it's like, and that's it or something. But as they kept adding new negotiation tiers, the sounds got longer and longer and more complicated. So eventually you're using this modem and it goes through like all these phases, and that's where the like right, and it's like multi-step. It used to be shorter because it was just the one tone. But then they had to do the handshake and figure out, can you do 9600 baud? Can you do 14.4? Like, and it keeps escalating, right?
Is that sound actually real? I feel like it was like literally like the same pitch.
What the hell do you even mean was that actually?
Well, he's saying like,
I don't know.
Trash, you're saying like, is it basically like the sound at the end of the washing machine when it makes a sound, right? Where it says that it's done, or is it like really connecting?
I'm just like trying to understand like how they came up with this sound. Like
It
I don't
sounds
know.
humans can't make to prove that it's not a human dialing into something, I assume.
Yeah, they didn't want it to be like someone answers the phone and then it starts like thinking it's an actual modem, I assume. So it's just checking what you are. It's like, hey, can you speak this? Can you speak this? Can you speak this? And so they had different tones, like a dial tone and things like that to signal what you are. Dial tone is this.
Today I learned. Not gonna lie.
These are the numbers, right? Like here's what the touch tone phone tones are, right? These are the click sounds for a rotary dial phone. There's like machines listening everywhere, right? And they need to know who
the machines are listening. Casey.
I had no freaking idea. I thought they were just like, this would be kind of cool, man.
Yeah.
I'm just like,
this is
what?
gonna be an awesome sound that we can play out of the speakers.
You're like, Bob,
The
what do you
brand
got?
new modem from Cisco coming to you with the sickest sounds of dial-up.
They're just like in the AOL boardroom, Bob. What do you got, Bob, for us?
Yes. Yeah, and then they're all sitting there going like, nah, CompuServe has this one that's like, and that one was sick, dude. That one was sick. We need something like that.
Yeah.
What do you got? Go back and give me something fresh.
They've got the Rick Rubin of like vibes of them. He's,
Yeah.
It needs a little more white noise sounds for me, man.
Yeah.
That's too funny.
Did you listen on your car speakers though? Because it sounds different. You know what I'm saying? You gotta try different computers.
The acoustics in this room are not conducive to my dial tones.
Yeah. I can't work like this. You don't understand art. It's very possible.
I get this mentality if you were a kid. If you were just an actual child.
He was a kid when it happened.
Same here. We're the same age, but you're now
I
an
had no
adult and you
idea,
know how things
literally.
work. You never just pieced it together that they're talking?
All I cared about was going to my chat rooms and having a good time, man.
Yeah.
It's literally.
Dude, ASL,
I was probably
baby.
getting catfish.
ASL.
Dude, me and all my neighbors, we thought we had like girlfriends or something. I don't even know. Dude, one time they actually
baby.
called. They actually called my house, and they're like, we're like 10 or something, and we said we were like 16. And they called, and my mom was like, this person's on the phone, and me and like all my buddies just started freaking out. We're like, hang up the phone. It was so bad. Anyways.
What did it? No.
No, Andy, that's not an anyways. That doesn't end in an anyways, Trash. There's not an anyways ending to that.
There's an anyways. There's 100% an anyways.
No. That's right.
There's 100% an anyways.
So how did you explain it in the Dragon Ball Z chat room afterwards when you didn't answer?
Yeah, Trash, you need to start a few steps back. Step one. Okay.
Yeah.
How... I just start the whole story over because I need to know what happened and then what your mom said.
I want to know, how do you think it was a good
what
idea that
chat
they
rooms
call you? You're like, hey, you know what? I'm 16. Let him call me. That's right.
I don't even know what we were thinking. Actually, giving my phone number out on the internet for someone to call.
You're like,
Dude,
what's the worst could happen on this Dragon Balls thing?
It was crazy. It was, dude. I remember after that moment, I can actually vividly remember this. We hung up.
And you said, I'm going to use one password for the rest of my...
They hung up. We had call waiting, so we didn't get knocked off when they called, but they had to get offline to call, so I could see went offline. And then we see that they signed back on. They're like, what happened? And we're just like, and we just block them. We're just like, I can't talk
Wait, so
to
it
this
was a real person, you're saying?
Of course, dude.
Yeah.
TJ, this was the day and age of real people.
This is
on
how
chat
you
rooms.
met people.
Oh, I thought you were getting... when you were saying you were getting catfish, I thought you meant early fake AI chatbot spammer.
Dude, I mean, I'm sure that happened to us, but like this specific instance was like,
No, this was
that's
way
like-
too. There was no AI chatbotters at this point. This was the old-fashioned catfish, and
Dang.
he was the catfish.
This is like down home country catfish.
True.
This is real,
Catfish was
Crash
natural,
was the catfish.
organic
we learned a hard lesson that day.
fishing caught with a fishing pole catfish.
Dude, it was
All right.
wild times.
All right,
Wild
wow,
times.
that was that's great. Hey, by the way, should we? I like how TJ.
Welcome to our
I'm
podcast
just
about
processing.
performance, everyone. We're
I'm
now
just
on Dragon
processing.
Balls and getting catfished in 1998 or whatever.
Can we just get back to performance? Can we talk?
No,
about
because
this?
Prime, you and I both haven't done our sounds
Okay.
yet.
All right,
we
well,
cannot.
also,
All right,
apparently we have to tell a
TJ,
story.
you're up.
Okay, do you want me to tell you the story that my mom told me in about third grade about what the internet will become, or
Yes.
do you want me to tell you about my habits in high school? I'll give you one.
Both.
Both.
We've
Yes.
got time.
We can do both.
Yes.
I want to
got
hear
time.
habits in high school first.
Okay, habits in high school were very, very simple. I would do something similar to Casey. I'd get home from school and I'd play video games. Sony Online Entertainment, which had infantry, so they had this like 100-person game of capture the flag with guns and stuff like that. Played a lot of that. Very good at the game. Got pretty high up on the old rankings. And then I'd stay up until about 1 in the morning, look at porn, and then go to bed at whatever time afterwards. And I'd do that every day. And then during high school, I'd sleep in 3 to 4 of my classes, and I took 2 gym classes. Lot of gym classes. 2 gym classes every day. Okay, really into it. That was my high school. That literally was it. Well, I did nothing else in high school other than play video games and stay up until 2, 3 in the morning, and then sleep in class. I also didn't get a good grade in high school. It's crazy.
It's hard when you're
see
sleeping
that.
through everything. It's true.
All right, so
tough.
I'm
It is
going to
true.
tell you my mom's story. This is a great story. So I must have been in 3rd grade. I still remember this quite well. She said, okay, so because she's had like prophetic dreams, like weird ones. When I say prophetic dreams, most people think, okay, you're weird. No, she's like my dad.
We
came,
were already thinking that, buddy.
and
Don't
there-
worry.
And he's like, check these bank accounts because someone stole money. And yes, lo and behold, someone stole money from my mom. Checking these. So like real bizarre level dreaming my mom's had. And this one she's like, I had a dream where effectively the world was covered in silver bands and you could visit anywhere you want. And you could see anything you want. And eventually the whole world got covered in these silver bands and you could go everywhere instantaneously. It started, it was like amazing. And then someone came and everybody would rush towards this thing and that's how the world's going to end. And I was just like, that's the craziest thing ever. This was like in 3rd grade. And then the internet came around. I'm like, oh, wow, that's a weird feeling. And then,
Right. Yeah, that's like a donkey. That's like a donkey modem. Modem
That
plus
was like
donkey.
Poltergeist for a second. Oh my gosh.
I feel like I did pretty good, okay? Because
That
it
was
starts
good.
off fast. It's like,
We gotta
Very
zoom,
good.
Josh. We gotta zoom in on his face. He turned so red.
I
during
did.
the
I
donkey
really,
part.
dude, I laid it
That was
out.
intense.
What are you talking about? I didn't do like a weak sound.
Yeah.
That was intense.
So your
was
mom
wild.
basically presaged the fact that the whole world would get on one giant network.
Yeah, she told me
And-
that I was like 3rd grade. I remember this vividly. She had this dream.
What,
decade before that.
1950?
But what about the world ending part? Because that part, should we be worried?
I don't know.
How did that
I
part
don't know.
go? What's the? Do we have any details about that?
No, that's all
Casey,
she
that
told
already
me.
happened in 2012. The Mayan
Okay.
calendar. We're living
That's good.
in the dark
That's a good
timeline
point.
right
And
now.
why
Okay,
can't
everybody
it
that's
already
fair.
happen, bro?
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Then TJ, we're still missing a modem sound from you.
Yeah. Okay. I'll do. Well, so I'll say something random about high school then too. Closest thing. So I shared a room with my brother. So
Milky?
yeah, Melky. Me and Melky when we were growing up after we immigrated, and then. So the thing for me was I couldn't keep him up at night because he needed to get his beauty rest. So I would literally go take my book. I loved reading books. I didn't need school books, Prime, to be clear.
Yeah, he read Wheel of Time.
Yes, I was reading Wheel of Time. And I would turn on my closet light and go sit inside of the closet, hoping that that light wouldn't be enough to see the light underneath the door. So then my parents would be like, "What's TJ doing? He's reading again. It's 1 a.m. Why is this happening?" So there you go. That's mine.
Yes, the parents need to stop the child from reading.
Yeah.
Something that literally no parent has a problem with today.
They do when you stay up too late, and then I'm like, I wasn't gonna spend time studying, right? So I had to be awake for class time. So that was the big thing. There was I had to make sure I was actually awake during school hours. I was a good student though in school, believe it or not, guys. So
Wow.
okay,
TJ,
and
good
then
student. Not shocking.
I was
Yeah.
like, oh.
Except for
Okay.
Spanish class, apparently.
Me and Laura.
so my now wife, then girlfriend at the time, we were high school sweethearts. She was very mad at me that I was going to get an A- in Spanish. She's like, you could get an A if you wanted to, and you better do it. So I said, okay. Then I started studying for Spanish.
Wait. So
Yeah.
both of you are kind of like academic overachievers or something?
Yeah, she was a much better student than I was too. I mean, I
Okay.
got good grades, but she was a better student. You know what I mean? Like,
Okay.
she would take notes and like care about
Okay.
things and stuff like that.
All
yes.
right. With like nice handwriting and everything?
Gel
Oh,
pens?
it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
It looks like
That's
it's
how my
literally
high school
stamped.
girlfriend
Yeah,
was.
I know how that. Okay, I see
Yeah.
I see where you're going with that.
Yeah, and then she did biochemistry in college and like did very well at that and everything. Yes, so she's a very good student.
All right, so maybe she should
Alrighty.
be on the podcast. I mean, I'm not trying to kick you off, TJ.
Yeah,
but I'm
we
just
could
saying,
have her
like,
on.
It
She could
sounds
tell
like
you
an
some-
upgrade. Yeah.
She could tell you some funny stories about me in high school, probably. Yeah, yeah.
I want to hear the noise.
most okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, here we go.
Hit me with the noise.
I'm just kidding. I turned on my robot filter. All right, I'll do my real one. All right, I gotta go. Gotta get the vocal cords warmed up. You
That
got
sounds like
mail.
dubstep.
like a
Is that
frog
dubstep?
modem.
It sounds like Skrillex or something.
That's what that Trash, you didn't know. He literally said his inspiration for all of his music came from his dial-up modem.
I'm not gonna lie. I was believing you, but I didn't want to look like I was believing you. And I was like, man, that's crazy.
Man, that's crazy.
Casey didn't laugh. I
actually
was gonna
looking
let
around
that
at
one
everyone else's
stay.
faces. I was looking at everyone else's faces to see if they believed you. I was like,
Sorry.
Hell
I was just
yeah.
like, yeah, I don't believe that. Yeah, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, that's crazy. I'm definitely not thinking that's real.
50K, 56K dubstep is a pretty sweet. Like that's pretty sweet
Oh,
band
yeah.
name. Like I could listen
Yeah.
to some 56K right now.
Yeah,
That would be awesome.
My
That would be
performance. What were we talking about with performance?
Yeah, can you get back?
We
to
haven't
performance?
we haven't talked about anything related to performance, but that's perfect. I mean, that's exactly how it should go.
Casey got his thing out where he said, guys, he's not even that serious about performance. Why are all you lagging behind? That was the message
I know,
that
but
he
we
wanted
need to
to
talk
portray.
more about this. Okay, I want to hear
Okay,
more
so
about.
Yeah, but
let's-
like the context.
You're
like
the one that
hardware
brought up
performance
dial-up,
or what?
Prime.
Yeah, let's drill down a little bit. So basically, here's the thing. The only real change I think that it would take is just a general attitude, just shift the attitude a little bit to like actually caring and going, this stuff should be basically instant for the end user. Mm-hmm. And you can't turn it around immediately. Like every library, every substrate, every default platform people are shipping are all basically horrible performance. So you're not going to just show up overnight, at least especially in the web world, but even in games there's a lot of rot now in some engines, right? But basically, like, you're not going to just show up and fix it tomorrow. But if everyone was like, we should stop just accepting software practices because some like guy wrote a book and like it sounded good to us at the time, and we should start actually going like, why has software gotten terrible over the past 20 years and way, 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 way slower, right? Why don't we actually figure out what is wrong with the way we're doing things that's producing this result? Because it doesn't have to be. Nobody has to write anything in assembly language to make these software packages fast. They just have to remove the 20 layers of crap that they're inserting between what the CPU has to do and what you wrote. That's it. That's the only thing that has to happen, is you've stacked so many things, interpreters on top of libraries, on top of emulation, times of packages, and times of this, and times of Docker containers, and blah, 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 blah. And this just chokes a modern computer with crap, with waste, basically, right?
Is there any-
It's as if you're eating, like, you need to get a little bit of iron in your diet, And so you eat something with like 1% of your daily allowance of iron and 99% like the fattiest carbohydrate gunk that does nothing, right? And you're like, that's what you're feeding this poor CPU, and there's nothing it can do, right? So really just change that and going like, let's like actually consider this important. Let's try to start eliminating these layers, and the layers that we do need that we're using because we want to reuse this, let's make them efficient. Let's figure out how to actually make them efficient, because we can. That's all it would really take over the next 10 years to turn it all around. Do you know what I'm saying?
Okay, hold on. Is there at least some level of argument to be made that our world has gotten significantly more complex than 20 years ago?
No.
No? You don't think
there's literally zero argument at all. Because way back then, you actually had to think about things like what order these assembly language instructions would be going in, or how you were going to make all of this work in only 8 registers in order for it to not be horribly unperformant, right? And now, even the smallest modicum of awareness about what you're feeding to the CPU, and you will run blazingly fast. Like a modern M4 chip or a Zen 5 CPU or something will run almost any reasonable piece of code instantly. They are absolute beasts. It's unfathomable to me when I look at how performant they are. They're just incredible, right? But you just have to stop layering all this artificial crap in between them, right? Like, and it's not, the world hasn't gotten more complicated. We made it artificially complicated, right? We lost the ability to ship the idea of a stable operating system platform, for example. Like, what's a Docker container? Why does it exist? Why is that layer even there? It's there because we lost the ability to think and write reliable, stable APIs for our substrate. So now you have no choice but to bundle up all the crap you were using in exactly the crap state that it was and dump the whole thing onto the end user's machine, right? Now that, I don't want to pick on that specifically because it's like, okay, whatever, like that's going on, right? But all of that stuff would not be necessary. Same thing with like interpreted languages or things like slow garbage collection, right? We don't need to have those things. There are better ways and more efficient ways. But what typically happens is these things, I mean, you take a look at something like JavaScript, right? The first thing that gets shipped, it just propagates forever. And no one is stopping and going, wait a minute, guys, hold on. We need to do a revision step here. We need to make something that's fast by default, that ships cleanly by default. Let's do that work so that going forwards, everyone isn't building on a faulty foundation. Python, don't get me started, right? Python is 10 times worse.
I want to hear you get started about Python and how the for loop.
It's even worse than JavaScript because it really does. It hardly can even be JIT, right? It's even worse for something like that. Like JavaScript, at least certain cases for JavaScript can be made pretty fast by something like a good JIT engine. If you wrote the JavaScript code like so that it can map cleanly, like so that the JIT can see what it's doing, it can do a lot better. Python, a lot of people are just shipping Python. And Python doesn't really even have an answer for that, right? And so if you write actual loops in Python, they're just dog slow. There's nothing you can do about that, right? You have to actually do something. Like you could drop it to Python. You could try to use a Python accelerator of some kind, right? But by default, if you literally just ship some Python, it's a disaster, right? On and on and on. And again, I don't want to suggest that any of these specific things is the problem. Like, there's nothing uniquely wrong with Python or something. It's the whole general idea that it just doesn't matter and just let everyone else deal with it and let CPU vendors have to keep, make everyone upgrade their phones and their computers all the time, creating huge amounts of e-waste and just a really bad use of resources for humanity, right? Power consumption, everything else, because we just didn't care. You know what I'm saying? And so I don't think the world is any more complicated. I think we made software artificially complicated, and we're paying the price every day, forcing CPUs to run this horribly overburdened stuff to do a job that if the job had just been written, like if you just rewrote that job in just simple C, it would have been 500 lines of code and it would have ran blazingly fast. But instead, it's like literally millions of lines of code when you consider all of the pieces that actually were involved, right? And it's just incredibly, incredibly slow to get it to actually do anything, right? So, that's the world.
I want to try to pinpoint the problem because I don't think it's a lack of care. I do not buy that as the hypothesis for the reason why it's happening.
Okay.
I'm trying to like. That's why I'm trying to come up. That's why I'm asking these questions. And so I guess the next question I'd have is, a lot of corporate environments. There's most certainly an expectation of moving at a certain speed. There's a recommended path of like, hey, if you want to do something, you need to operate in this kind of way. I think, like even at Netflix, if I were to create like an internal UI that I knew that had to be used by a lot of people, I'd probably just choose React because it's just like, hey, I know how to play the game. I know what's not. I don't need to write this in Rust and HTMX, even though that would have been my choice back then. It's just like I don't need to do that. There's like this whole layering that I have to do for a parent, like team playing. Is the idea of pushing hard from management to deliver things? Does that help create these kind of things where I will just choose something off the shelf, regardless of how many things that it shows off the shelf? Regardless of how many things that, like that multiplying effect of off the shelfies that has happened, where it's just like I'm relying on someone else's house of cards because I need the perception and both the perception and the reality of shipping faster.
Yes and no. So I guess what I'd say is it depends who you are talking about, right? So for people who just are trying to write a UI, like I want to make a UI for this thing that I'm doing internal to Netflix or even external to an end user. No, it's not their fault, and it's not even their problem, really, in my opinion. You should have been able to use an off-the-shelf thing and make your UI, and it should have run blazingly fast and used basically no system resources, right? The problem is the layer below. To a certain extent, there is a little bit of blame that shifts upwards because the pressure's not on. Like, nobody's pressuring people to say, look, we need these things to be better. Like, why aren't there more initiatives? Why isn't there more money being put into making these things very performant and very low system resource usage? But really, like, most of the caring that I'm talking about is at this, like, standardization. Like, let's say W3C. I can tell you definitively from reading their notes that they don't care. They simply do not care. Right? They could have taken performance seriously. They don't. Right? I've seen time and time again when I've gone looked at things. I'm like, why the heck was this way? And I look at their minutes. Nowhere to be found is like actual expert performance analysis. And this is W3C. They could call someone up. Right? They could call up a performance expert and say, we'll pay you some consulting fees to come advise us on how to design this problem. Never. Right? They just assume that they know best, or that it's not a concern or whatever, and they march along, right? And so we end up with a lot of things where I think, like that lower level is just a complete rot at this point. And so it's not someone's fault now. Someone who's a workaday engineer at a company is just trying to get things done. They can't go rewrite React, right? I mean, they could try to lobby internally. Like, if you're going to be a hero, you could lobby internally to create a project to make a no UI, right? But that could fail, right? Software projects fail sometimes, all that stuff. So can you do stuff to try and help? Yes, you can. But is it your fault that it's not? It's like, no. The fault is in the platform. And we kind of know this as well, because if the fault was just individual people, right, then it wouldn't be this uniformly terrible performance of software. It would be very varied. But what we actually see is uniformly terrible performance, basically. And that's because everyone's building on top of layers that are very slow. The actual way that they end up working in practice is very slow, right? So that's what I think is happening. And the care is... everyone, like when I say shifting that mentality, everyone needs to start caring. But what that means is a little bit different. Management and people who are just trying to get their jobs done, doing, stuff above the substrate, they need to care because they need to be complaining, right? Management needs to be worried that it's slow and complaining that it's slow. The engineers need to be complaining that it's slow so that the dry powder exists. But then the people who actually need to operationalize that caring and need to be funded to operationalize that caring are the people doing the substrate work. Because these things have to get faster by default. That's the only way that things will get fixed, because it can't be every time you want to ship a non-laggy UI, you got to become some huge expert in React and rewrite parts of it or special case. Like, it can't be that. It's got to be that I just use the normal UI library and it's fast. That's got to be the way it goes, or it's not going to get better, right?
The the thing that's been surprising to me, like in the past about these conversations at companies, is like every like study or like internal thing that I've seen anywhere, when the page loads faster, you get more sales.
Yes.
Like
We know this.
It does seem like I've never found one where it's like, it doesn't correlate or negatively correlates. The only time I've ever seen that, sshterminal.shop, we had to add a loading screen at the beginning to make people believe that it was a real store in SSH. Like, it is literally a time.sleep at the beginning to show the logo, because people thought we were making a joke store. Because they're like, well, you can't possibly load your state this fast.
Right. This is a problem people find. I have a story about that. Well, it's not really a story. A guy I knew shipped a game on PlayStation, and he optimized the online part so that if you went to go get levels from the online like place where users could post their user-made levels, it was just instant. Because he cached things and he had it working properly, and he didn't like present any latency that the servers would have to the user. It was just instant. And everyone thought that it wasn't actually connecting. Yeah. Right? Because they've been so used to the slowness that now they don't believe that software can actually run at the speed that we all know it can. That's how pervasive the suck is, right? Is that people now don't even believe that a web page could be instant or that a server thing could be, but all of it could be. Yeah. Right? So that's the thing that's a little bit surprising, is like I've had this conversation internally before, and I'm like, it does seem like it's worth making this faster, guys. Yeah. And then it's like, well, we don't. Like, every time I've ever seen this, everyone says it increases user retention, everything's better, time to first paint like matters, like a bunch of, and then I don't know. So that for me has always been a like kind of surprising disconnect. I don't know, Trash, like, you experienced this at all, or like
in terms of like performance and like internal politics and stuff like that? Yeah, I mean, there's like two crowds too, because I've been on the internal tool side and then the consumer facing side, which are completely different in terms of performance. Like, internal tools, whatever, like, it's not like the biggest deal, like it doesn't have to be that fast. But then consumer, right, take like Amazon, e-commerce, whatever, those have to be faster, right? But in my experience in terms of performance, it's never really been much on the UI, like the JavaScript stuff. It's always been like the server part, right? We've always had to optimize our fetching patterns and, the database queries and stuff like that. So it's like, it's very rare, at least in my experience, like, unless like you're like horribly just botching how you're writing your UI apps, the bottleneck is always typically going to be like at the server or like somewhere around there. But back to like what Prime was saying though, like being performance being kind of like bureaucratic in a sense, because people just want to ship and stuff. Like, it's just kind of like the reality, unfortunately. But I will say, like, I did notice, like, in the past 5 years or so, like, people are pushing each other more and more, because I don't know if it's kind of like the echo chamber that we're in, like on Twitter. I think there's more passionate people there versus like maybe some other places. So there's always people like, oh, look at my benchmark. It's kind of to the point, and I actually kind of like, everyone kind of stopped doing it because everyone was kind of like, your benchmarks are BS. But at some point, there was a point where everyone's like, yeah, we can actually be faster. And like a good example would probably be like Node and Bun, right? Yeah. These two new runtimes, like Bun has pushed Node to like, oh, okay, maybe we should invest, right? But they're like open source and like they do this for free effectively. So there are efforts of like pushing the boundaries at the browser level. I don't know, like I don't really pay attention to like the Chrome team and the Safari team. I don't know what they're doing as far as like that granular. But I have seen in the community that people do want it to be better. But these things take time, I guess, and I don't know. I don't have much to say on that one.
Okay, I got a couple things. So we did this. This is pivotal test, and I know if there was some coding guy in here, he'd know exactly what I'm about to say with Cell 6. Cell 6 was infamous at Netflix. This was early days. This is when we were putting trailers for the first time as like a video that would show when you'd land in the television app for the first thing, like the big billboard, just that one.
Yeah, thanks, Prime.
Well, this wasn't me for this one. So this was the very initial one. And Cell 6 was, okay, we think that the trailer is so important that we're actually going to prevent the user from even going inside the app until the trailer is done completely downloading, which I think it added some amount of seconds of of time. And there was no visible difference in any metric between doing it and not doing it. And so one of the conclusions that was early brought on by management was that performance does not matter. Like if you take some amount of seconds versus some amount of seconds, the internal one, like the ones that some of us kind of came up with, was it doesn't really matter if you load in 11 seconds or 15 seconds. It's already so far out that any of the learnings is already gone. And also Netflix is a high, is what I would like to think of as a already baked into the cake loading time experience on a TV. Like a lot of people open up these programs and then just walk away. They'll take a second. They'll just let them load because they already know it's going to be a long, long time. It didn't really matter if it took a while. And then I'll tell one more fun story about Netflix. So there was that. Then the second big one was we did a test where we had to reduce effectively are using too much memory, and we are fetching all this data for everything around the boxes because we were doing like predictive play delay. And so it's like if you were going to play some other show, we wanted to be like ready to play. So it's like starts up as fast as possible. It took me 2 years to convince everybody to turn it off. It was a lot of meetings, like meeting after meeting. And finally, I actually just did it. I just said, okay, forget it, freedom and responsibility, F&R, baby. And I went and just turned on a test, allocated 10 million people and called it a day. And I just turned it off. I just said, no, we're not going to do play predict. And what ended up happening, we actually showed a slight green into revenue. And the reason being is that we just used a bunch less resources. Things slightly quit crashing as much. People had a faster experience. And boom, turns out more people actually enjoyed using the product when it wasn't lagging inside. So I came up with a couple good conclusions, I think. There is a huge difference between an out-of-app spinner and an in-app spinner. If you're using the app, I think the expectation should be no loading. But if you're waiting for the app, I think people have a much greater tolerance for something loading. So being able to be like, hey, there's a 5-second startup time or a 7-second startup time, I don't think you're actually going to make a huge argument there. If the difference is, 500 milliseconds versus 10 seconds, I think you could make a great argument there. But if it's inside the app and then you have to wait a few seconds, I think people highly care. And I got one more good one for you, TJ.
Well, can I say one other thing too?
Okay.
There's got to be some difference, too, of when you have made, like, a conscious choice to, like, type netflix.com into your browser versus, like, just encountering something random or, like, you're doing something within the app, right?
Correct.
Like, that's even not just, like, the loading aspect, but, like, I already took the conscious decision to go to netflix.com. I've got 20 minutes. I'm going to watch a show.
Yes.
It's going to turn into 45.
I've already
given up.
I'm going to spend an hour doing nothing. So it's like that time. There's definitely a mentality there. But okay, this is probably our most interesting test we did, which was when you press over, there was like a 270 millisecond animation or whatever it is. And someone's like, we should like remove all this slowness so when you can just like go faster. And it turns out when we allowed people to go faster, there was like a dip in watch metrics and people quit using Netflix as much. And the big draw away, this was like 6 years ago, 7 years ago, 8 years ago, was that what ended up happening if you actually measured where people were at, they would get deeper into the Lolomo where the less recommended objects were. And they would go so fast, they'd skip over things they were more likely to watch and enjoy watching because they could move so fast. And so there actually is like a performance trade-off that does exist where you give someone too much speed and they go right by everything they could like because they're just like bam, 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 bam.
In shopping analysis, they call this the decompression zone. And this is why oftentimes like supermarkets or things like that will have some stuff right at the front that they don't really care if you buy or not. And so you got to get a little bit deeper, like in retail, like or in clothing stores. Oftentimes there'll just be some stuff on like a front thing that you have to kind of go around like a rock in the water, and that's like just something that they expect you to look at later. Like you're not going to see it on the way in, right?
Yeah.
I do think so. Here's one thing I will say about performance. Pretty much universally, and as much as everyone seems to want to deny it, pretty much universally, performance dramatically improves the enjoyment that people have when they use something on a computer. And, to your point, Prime, that may not be what you're trying to do. If Netflix wants you to click on a movie and start playing it, and they don't really want you to enjoy moving around the movie, like, if you're really having fun, there's such a thing as making your app too awesome if the whole point of it is that you actually want them to link out to some other experience, right? So, sure, I could even see there being some times when someone could say legitimately, they go like, look, our app was too baller. We had to dial it back. And if you said that to me, I'd be like, okay, cool, right? If you're arriving at that place not because you're making an excuse, but because you actually made something too awesome and went, oh crap, this is too awesome. Now everyone's doing this thing instead of the thing we actually wanted them to do. Totally valid point, right? It's the other part that sucks, where you're like, look, I would like this map to scroll at 60 frames a second and zoom in at 60 frames a second so I can see the frickin' place where my car is going. But instead it's like click, 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 click. And I'm like, guys, you are aware that this phone runs like Fortnite at 60 frames a second, right? Fortnite! Mm-hmm. And you're drawing 3 lines and a dot at frickin' 10. What's going on, right?
Dude,
and that's a constant thing, right? Where you're just like, there's no excuse for this. It's the same problem. Fortnite is rendering a map just like you are, but somehow, like, you could not figure it out, right? And so it's weird when you see those kinds of things, because I'm like, I don't think anyone would use, a Maps app less if it was super buttery smooth. And the other way that I know that is, if people were sitting around going, I just don't care how fast the maps update, I just don't care, they'd never buy a new phone. Like, they wouldn't be buying a new phone with a faster processor. Apple would just put the same processor in the phone as they put in last year and just upgrade the camera or something. Because it's like, if all you wanted was a better photos, they wouldn't spend money on making a new chip.
They should do
They'd
that
ship
anyways.
the old chips, right?
Yeah.
But they know that when everyone gets a phone and it can scroll fast again, because now they are shipping a chip that can catch up with all the suck that developers added over the past 3 years, right? That consumers are going to be happy with their experience again, right? And so, again, you just see this, you're going like, guys, like, you can see that it's, like the market is telling you that performance matters. It's unambiguous, because otherwise we'd just be shipping the same chips we shipped 10 years ago if it didn't matter, right? But it does matter. And so it's really, what you're basically doing is forcing people to spend all this extra money, and again, creating a tremendous amount of e-waste. That's the worst part of it, is these things are just going into giant landfills. You can't really repurpose an old, some A-series chip. You can't repurpose that. It can't be like melted down and remade into a new A-series chip. It doesn't work that way, right? And so you're literally just creating a giant dump of garbage because we didn't want to like figure out how to ship a faster substrate, right? And that's no good. That's bad, right? It's bad all around.
Yeah, don't worry, Casey. As soon as we start putting AI on the phones, we're gonna keep on.
We got so many
spending
chips,
a lot of
Casey.
reasons.
So many
Oh
chips
my
need
god,
to be
dude!
invented
Yeah, because
right
now there's going to be a huge part of the chip that's dedicated for TPU stuff, right? And that's going to have to, this artificial right is
And
not doing anything. Yeah.
You know they're going to be asking AI questions that can be solved with the calculator app. You know
Yep.
what I mean? It's you type in
Yep.
what's 5 plus 5, burn down the forest, 10
No.
or 11. We're not sure.
Your calculator is going to round trip to a server because they won't have we don't have the TPUs to give you a result in a reasonable amount of time for 5 plus 7, right? So we had a round trip to the cloud, so that's going out there, adding a ton of latency, right? You spike the power grid, half of America's in a blackout, so that you could add 5 plus 3, which is something that we could do instantly in 1973. Right? And that's the world that people are actually barreling towards for some strange, unknown reason. And people like me are just like so depressed all the time because we're like, God, this world, like everything could be instant. Like
You're going to get
everything.
the AI summary, Casey, of your text messages when you could have
Yeah.
just read the text message
Yes.
and not spend any TPU power on it.
Yeah, I will say there's like this mentality that I've seen where, like within engineers, where they kind of just they want to build these experiences, and then their attitude is like, well, hardware will catch up to where I can build this, so it'll be shitty for now.
Yeah.
But eventually it'll be good.
Someday.
And then everyone, exactly. So that's like something I've seen. Like I saw someone in chat, they're like, shitty software is driving hardware innovation or something. And I was like, yeah, 100%.
The problem is we can write bad software faster than
That is,
they can
that
make
is,
new
the,
chips.
that is the current problem, actually. We should talk about that. Prime, sorry, I don't want to interrupt you. So.
I got to jump in on this one because I have to like, because I've heard these kind of arguments and I always have to counter it. I remember, so there's this thing called SIGGRAPH. I'm sure Casey's at least familiar with SIGGRAPH. There was this presentation where this guy had 1,000 bouncy lawn chairs fall down, and they all had like wiggle physics and everything. And this was in 2006. and he was able to do that on 2006 hardware with 1,000 chairs at once, all falling into a big group and popping around. And he invented algorithms for it, a whole new ways to calculate stuff. It was like an incredible presentation. And so whenever I hear someone being like, "Oh, hardware is going to catch up," my only thought is that like the plot was so long ago that we've lost it, because you cannot tell me that there's a single web application that's as complicated as calculating bendy physics of lawn chairs and 1,000 of them colliding into each other, because they're very complex shapes. And so
Dude,
it's just
I
like
don't know, putting a video in the middle of the screen.
I know, like the fact that I can't get the play button to say play when I'm playing and pause when I'm paused on YouTube, and we're sitting there like looking at bouncy physics chair man who solved this on a computer that is like half the speed of my phone, and that's just like I can't even scroll Twitter beyond 40 tweets without it actually like turning into like the opposite of jiggle physics, whatever that is, like stutter physics.
I think you're thinking of something else, Prime.
But there's I'd like to
TJ.
talk about that one point as well, right?
I know. I just get really angry about that. Like this whole notion of like hardware will catch up. I'm like, no, it can't be. It just can't be that, because Doom was made on the shittiest computer, and it has to be more complex than any website I've visited in the last 10 years. Like
you're totally right about that. You're totally right about that for sure. But I guess to trash what I think Trash was sort of talking about there was the idea. It's like, like I realized that someone, not me, right, could have made this experience faster and run well. But rather than me learning how to do that, or like learning to understand those things, I would prefer to just keep doing the slow version that I've been doing, and we'll just wait for the hardware to make that fast enough in 5 years or something, right? And the problem with that mentality is that the curve of acceleration for single-threaded code has not exactly leveled out. It's still going up, but it is really kind of like the knee of the curve has passed. And I think that's also one of the reasons why software today is feeling super crappy, is because people are still thinking that the hardware is going to be twice as fast every 18 months. But actually, the hardware is not twice as fast every 18 months at all. It's not even close if you're single-threaded. Because a lot of the things that we're doing now are like widening vector execution units, which no one's taking advantage of. Adding more cores, which no one's taking advantage of. Sticking TPUs on there, which will only be useful to run incredibly slow AI stuff that's even slower than the thing you're running now, right? And so the actual ability to accelerate single-threaded code has definitely been plateauing. And as process shrinks have become more and more challenging, hardware designers have had to get more and more creative about how they're going to get any performance increase at all out of new generation chips. And so it's possible that the single-threaded march continues to eke out. It's also possible that the party may be permanently over sometime soon. Not for performance increases, but for single-threaded performance increases like that. Single-threaded, non-SIMD performance increases. It could.
Which means JavaScript is capped out.
Which is a lot of, yes, JavaScript very much caps out there, because, like, not that JavaScript can't generate SIMD code, it can, but most code in JavaScript is not set up to actually be able to do that, right?
Yeah.
And again, it's... sorry, go right ahead, TJ.
Yeah, I was going to say, the other thing is, like, not everyone gets new hardware when it comes out.
Yeah.
Like, okay, cool, congrats. It runs fast on the 7090. Okay. So congrats on not selling your game to a bunch of people, like, because they don't have the 7090. And the other feeling for that, too, is, like, I know I'm not that old, okay? But, like, I still remember it was exciting to get, like, a new computer, because you're like, holy cow, guys. This thing is 4 times as fast as what mom and dad bought me last time, you know? For the house. I mean, everyone used a computer, of course. It wasn't just for me to play RuneScape, right?
Right.
That wasn't why I begged
what
mom.
happened,
you did.
but that's not what it was for.
A lot of RuneScape.
Yes, a lot of RuneScape. But now it's kind of like, oh, I mean, like, I guess it's better. You know, you're like, I guess I have to get a new one because, like, I want to play this game, or there's, like, a few things that I'm interested in doing, or I'm going to, like, get 50% more RAM. There's not, like, that magical wonder, I feel like, of coming home being like, the computer's 4 times faster. I loaded, what was that Jackrabbit game?
Jazz Jackrabbit.
Oh, it loaded in 0 seconds instead of 2 this time, you know? Like,
By Tim Sweeney. Epic, that's Epic. That's the Epic that makes Fortnite. Jazz
Really?
Jackrabbit. Yes.
Oh, dang. I didn't know that.
Yes.
That's
Never
sick.
seen this in
Oh,
my life.
I got one more thing that we did. We tried to make this happen. So this Trash, I don't know if you were at Netflix during this time, but we tried to get people to use Sugarland, which is the old Roku. Like this was way back in the day. Where like everybody, if you're going to use, like all employees must use Sugarland because it's the worst device we currently support.
Right.
And nobody would do it because the experience was that bad. Literally no one would use it. Instead, they just said, no, I'm not going to do it. And I realized there is definitely a part of the problem that you're discussing is a perception problem because a lot of software is written in these kind of concentrated tech cities or like in a concentrated, more wealthy environment where the people writing it tend to have more affluency than, say, the average people around them. And so every last person that you talk to is like, I got an M4 MacBook Pro. Oh, so do I. High five, right? Like they're all operating on like really quality software. And they don't have, like, there's no fluency in going, oh, actually, this is really, really painful. This is actually really, really hard because I would use older ones. I was like on a 2016 device in 2020, and people were just like, oh, how would you even use that? I'm like, I'm trying to make it, like, it helps me think through problems better because I'm looking at a problem where it's like, this probably matches more what people are experiencing worldwide than in the Silicon Valley. The Silicon Valley has zero understanding of what the world is like, because they live in such an extreme bubble of wealth and technology that they don't even know that the average person doesn't have the latest iPhone the second that it drops at all times.
And a lot of things are slow even on that iPhone, which is the shocking part, right? Like it's not like you get that iPhone and your web experience is flawless and instant. It's like, nope. Yeah. It's still incredibly slow in a bunch of places. It's just some things like scrolling or something where it can be done mostly just with the device and is being handled by, some stuff that was pretty well optimized by browser authors, right? Not the people shipping the website. That actually will work, right? Now, I wanted to mention something that TJ said. I just want to touch on that. Like, he was talking about the 7090. So I think it's important to draw a little bit of distinction here between GPU and CPU, though. Mm-hmm. A lot of times, like, if something's running slow graphics-wise, right, it may not be because people weren't trying... Like, GPUs are inherently parallelized, and the platform that they have set up for programmers to use is very parallel, right? So typically, people can still write really dumb stuff that makes the GPU have to do way more work than it should. Don't get me wrong. There's certainly fat and stuff like that, but there's such a world of difference. And the reason that there's a world of difference is because the people who made the substrate for development on GPUs were performance experts. The people who made Vulkan and DirectX and, the whatever OpenGL they're currently on, right, and Metal, all of it was designed, and the shading languages especially, like basically how shading languages work and get compiled and create distributed workloads on GPU, that whole substrate was done by performance experts. And as a result, people who have no idea how a GPU works, no idea what's going on, they can go to something like ShaderToy, type in a bunch of math, and it runs insanely fast. Even in the browser, it runs insanely fast because it's distributed to the GPU, because they created a substrate that was made for performance and allows an end user to simply and concisely describe what they want and make it run blisteringly fast. That should be the model for what we're trying to accomplish on the other side, right? Where's the people making the new version of the web where when you make something, it just runs nicely parallelized and very fast by default? Without anyone having to do anything special, without having to be a performance expert, just the thing you're going to type in will work, right?
That's the thing I was going to say, too, Casey, with that is, like, to use the GPU, like, the default and kind of only, it seems like, option unless you, like, somehow really mess it up, is, like, you have to write it that it works for parallel.
You can't do it any other way, really. The driver just does that, right? Right.
So then, because the default and, like, easy path moves to we go fast and can get faster in the future, right? Because we are figuring out how to do lots more cores and stuff. I get that part, and we're like, we are magically finding out we can just smash a bit, like a trillion of these. I don't know how many we have. It seems insane. Like, that's the difference, right? It's like the web default version is like slow. You can't figure out how to make it go parallel. You can't figure out how to write it good. By default, the option is like, we're going to garbage collect like crazy and blah, 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 right? And then, so that's where I agree with you. I feel like that's kind of the interesting part that I don't hear people talking about as much, right? Is like, if you want to make this faster, you have to figure out how the default experience can go fast and help people onto that path, not make it like an uphill battle to be like, oh, okay, well now I have to figure out how web workers work and how like all of these things work. I have to do object pooling myself and blah,
exactly.
You know, right. Prime's favorite JavaScript technique, object pooling. So it's like,
yes, correct.
The reason he likes that is because you can actually make things go faster, right?
Yep.
It's like, okay, but then we need to figure out a way to like, can we figure out a way to make that happen by default so everyone can just do it?
This is exactly the point, right? The point is, like, to bring it right back to the beginning of where we started this particular arc, right? Not everyone is going to be a performance expert. The goal is to make it so that your performance experts are there at the bottom substrate and that they have designed something excellent. And then everyone who builds on top of it, can they still slow it down? Yes, and they will to some extent. But the difference is they'll only, your apps will only run half as fast as they could instead of 100 times slower than they should, right? Like 1/100th of the speed is what we're having now. And if we went from 1/100th to 1/2 the speed, holy cow, would that blow everyone away in terms of the responsiveness of these things, right? So everything needs to be kind of reconsidered at that level and propagated upwards. And then things just get way, 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 way better because then everyone's just reaching for these new substrates that are designed to be minimal, fast, and everything's performant by default the way you use it. And the only suck that gets added then is any specific suck that you created. But you're not just sucking by default, which is what we have now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I got to go pretty soon. But before we do, Casey, or like maybe Prime knows a website. Prime, do you know any websites where people can learn how to enhance their computer experience and learn lots of cool things?
Dude, if there was a website, like, I don't know, computerenhance.com, that
That'd
would
be the perfect website name.
It's like a
I'll tell you
perfect website name.
I'll end with that. Yes, if you're interested in performance stuff, you can come check my stuff out at computerenhance.com. But let me give you the perfect illustration of what I mean by this. I don't want to do web dev. So what do? Computerenhance.com is just a Substack page. The performance of my performance-aware programming course sucks because you get it from the default thing that you use to show these things, and it's terrible, right? So I'm literally saying exactly what I said this entire time is my own experience. I didn't write anything. I just clicked like I'm making a thing, a publication on a site that people use to get their publications, right? Because I don't want to go write a whole thing. And the end result is the performance is terrible. You can literally go take a course by me where I show you all these awesome things about performance and we make super fast stuff and all this great things. And the way you're getting the content sent to you is incredibly slow, right?
For now, Casey. For now, me and Vegan were talking.
Okay,
yeah.
You're on it?
We're thinking about we might write
right.
something for you.
Yeah.
All right.
I just have like closing thoughts in general.
Yeah.
Yes,
I
hit
do
us,
agree.
Trev.
I do agree. Like the foundation we're building on, and I'm speaking like specifically like in my domain, isn't the greatest, right?
Oh,
Like no.
No, dude, it's TypeScript compiler problems. That's where.
Yeah. Well, no, I'm just saying like there's just us as engineers at this point in time, we build on top of so many abstractions that we just don't even know what's even happening underneath. But I think like in my ideal world, like you should care about what you're shipping. Like do your due diligence to like if something sucks, like dude, just like try to make it better. So I kind of like hate people that kind of just like ship stuff. I don't hate them, but I'm like disappointed when like someone can like ship something and they're like it's good enough or like it's performing bad, but they give like no effort to like even peel back one layer of the onion to like understand to make it better. And so I think like I don't know. I just want like people to like care a little bit more about their craft, I guess. Like in my like at least I don't know. I obviously in a perfect world not everyone's gonna do like that. But I just think like the mentality at the moment is just like ship as fast as you can. I'm gonna make 10, 12 startups in like 5 days.
And increase the pressure. Like that attitude, like you're saying, if you had an attitude that was like, I care, like what I know this can be much faster, why isn't it? That also just increases the pressure on the system as a whole for people like to make the substrates better, which in time will give you the ability to continue to not care. Like, you'll eventually not have to care as much because the things that you grab off the shelf at that point will already be much faster. So you won't have to know as much or peel back as many layers of the onion to figure out why things are going wrong, right? So, like, it pays dividends in the long run to just have that modicum of care where you're like, this should be faster, and I'm at least going to complain about it, right? Like, I'm not... Even if I'm not going to have the opportunity to go rewrite this myself or fix it myself, just increasing the pressure and the general systemic awareness that something is very wrong here, that helps us push these things forwards and have the substrates get replaced with better things, right?
I do also want to say that, you know, there could be a whole bunch of people that fall into this category that don't even know they're in this category. Like, I think there's a lot of people that just use Twitter, the website, and think it's perfectly fine. But when I press the post button, it takes about 2 seconds for the thing to show up. When I click outside of it, it takes about 2-3 seconds for the thing to go away. And no one actually has this categorized as a bad experience. This is just the experience. So when they make something that falls into a similar amount of performance, they're just like, oh, this is what normal is.
Well, the best one is mentions.
I am meeting the same bar of goodness that I see all around. And so there's also like a trained mentality that this is perfectly fine behavior. And so they may not even see this as something that's wrong. They don't even perceive it as bad. It just is what it is.
Mentions is the best one on Twitter, at least for, I don't know if you guys are similar. I click on mentions, I have to wait 30, 40 seconds before it will actually show new mentions. It's forever. It's like, it's infinitely long, right? It just shows an old stale page. And even if I refresh it, still stale. And then at some point, I don't know, some Ajax kicks in, like finally got a thing back, and it's like, oh, here's all the mentions, right? And it's like, it's insane how long some of these things take on Twitter. So it's weird to me, like, yeah, I know what you're talking about. Some people say, like, the performance is fine. So it's like, what? Like,
yeah.
Are you crazy? So.
All right. Well, let's wrap this thing up. Hey, this was a great conversation. I think nothing better has come out of this than Trash's story about the internet and covering it with a blanket.
I'm gonna go home and cover my cable modem with a blanket right now.
And also, today we all learned that modem sounds were shorter. I did not know that. See, I did not know that.
That is news to me.
So that was a great, real educational stand-up today. By the way, I'm kind of blocked right now, waiting on TJ. So next week I'll be able to get work done. But
I'm going camping. Sorry, you'll have to circle back with me on Monday. Bye.
Bye.
Boot up the day, vibe coding, errors on my screen, terminal coffee in hand, living